The Bugatti Veyron's top speed is 253 miles per hour. That's faster than a commercial airliner lifts off the runway. For years, that single number defined the car, transformed it from an engineering exercise into a cultural phenomenon. It didn't just make the Veyron fast. It made the Veyron. So when one of these cars ended up at auction after being repossessed, it should have been a straightforward story. Someone buys a legendary hypercar at a discount, fixes it up, and drives off into the sunset. Simple. Except nothing about this story is simple. The previous owner had reportedly stopped driving the car because of an electrical fault. And not some catastrophic, engine-destroying nightmare. The rumor going around was that the whole problem might be as simple as a blown fuse. A multi-million-dollar machine, sitting idle, because of something you could fix at a hardware store for under $1. Matt Armstrong had built his entire YouTube channel on exactly these kinds of projects. Cars that nobody else wanted, problems that nobody else wanted to touch. He had a reputation for turning impossible rebuilds into running vehicles. So he bought the Veyron, started filming, and began working through the problem step by step. At first, the project moved the way his projects usually do. Difficult, expensive, full of surprises, but possible. The kind of challenge his audience had watched him overcome dozens of times before. Then things started getting strange. The deeper Matt got into the rebuild, the harder it became to get support from the people who actually built the car. When he tried to source parts for a related Bugatti model, he was turned away. The reason given was safety. Bugatti believed the repair should only be performed by an authorized service center. Even when Matt pointed out that the Veyron in his workshop was a complete, structurally sound vehicle with no safety-critical damage, the answer didn't change. It was only the beginning, because as the rebuild progressed, the real obstacle came into focus. It wasn't the electrical fault. It wasn't the part sourcing. It wasn't even the labor involved in working on one of the most complex cars ever built. The real obstacle was something far more abstract and far more contentious. It was the top speed system. Most people who know the Veyron know the number. More than 250 miles per hour. What far fewer people know is that Bugatti never intended owners to access that performance on demand. The car operates in different modes, and unlocking its maximum speed requires a separate process involving a dedicated key. In standard mode, the Veyron is limited, capable, certainly, but not what it was designed to be. Only with the top speed key inserted, and only under the right conditions, does the car fully become itself. From Bugatti's perspective, this made complete sense. A vehicle capable of 250 plus miles per hour isn't a sports car you push a little harder through a corner. At those speeds, the margin for error is essentially zero. Tires, aerodynamics, and suspension geometry all operate at the absolute edge of what engineering can provide. Bugatti argued that restrictions weren't about control, they were about survival. But that argument didn't sit well with a large portion of Matt's audience. Because here's the thing, the Veyron is his car. He bought it. He rebuilt it. He spent months and considerable money bringing it back from the dead. And now, the question being asked in thousands of comment sections, forums, and social media threads was a simple one. If you legally own a vehicle, who gets to decide what you can do with it? One side of the debate was clear. Ownership should mean ownership, full stop. When a customer hands over money for a product, that product belongs to them. Not the manufacturer. Not a dealer network. Not a corporate legal team operating out of a headquarters thousands of miles away. The customer. And anything that limits what an owner can do with their own property, especially a limitation embedded invisibly into the product itself, is a form of control that goes well beyond safety. The other side was equally clear. A car that travels at 253 miles per hour is not a normal product. It is not a toaster, a washing machine, or even a conventional sports car. The engineering tolerances required to keep a driver alive at those speeds are extreme, and they depend on every system in the vehicle working exactly as intended. If an independent rebuild introduces an undetected fault into any one of those systems, the consequences at top speed could be fatal. From that perspective, Bugatti's caution wasn't corporate overreach. It was responsible engineering. Both arguments are reasonable. Both arguments have merit. And both arguments were playing out in real time as Matt kept working. Because while the internet argued, the car still needed to be finished. What made the situation especially fascinating was how the Veyron's design seemed to resist independent repair at almost every level. Most cars, even complex ones, are designed with the understanding that mechanics who didn't build them will eventually need to fix them. The Veyron often felt different. Its systems were deeply interconnected, its architecture expected a level of factory involvement that simply wasn't available to someone working independently, and finding answers required a degree of experimentation that most workshops would never attempt. But Matt's workshop isn't most workshops. Slowly, painstakingly, the project moved forward. The engine ran. The systems came online. The car moved under its own power. For most rebuilds, that's the finish line. For this one, it felt like the start of a new chapter, because a car that runs is very different from a car that performs. And a Veyron that doesn't perform isn't really a Veyron. The question that had been hovering over the entire project, whether the rebuilt car would ever access its full potential, started becoming impossible to ignore. Viewers who had followed every episode weren't just interested in whether the car worked. They were interested in whether it would do what Bugatti built it to do. And that question, it turned out, was bigger than one YouTube channel. Matt's rebuild had become a proxy for a much wider conversation, one that extends far beyond Bugatti, far beyond supercars, and far beyond any single rebuild project. The same tension between manufacturer control and consumer ownership shows up in modern electric vehicles, where software updates can unlock or restrict performance features. It shows up in agricultural equipment, where farmers have been locked out of repairing their own tractors. It shows up in consumer electronics, medical devices, and dozens of other product categories where the line between a product and a service has blurred beyond recognition. The right to repair movement has been building momentum for years, and what Matt was documenting in his workshop, whether he intended it this way or not, had put a human face on one of its central arguments. This wasn't abstract policy. This was a man, a car, and a manufacturer deciding what that car was allowed to be. By the time the Veyron was finally ready to be tested, the project had taken on a weight that nobody had anticipated at the start. Months of work, countless setbacks, an audience that had grown far beyond the usual rebuild community, and a set of questions that no amount of mechanical skill could fully answer. Would the car perform like a Bugatti? And if it could, if Matt's rebuild proved that the Veyron didn't need the factory to return to its full potential, what would that mean? Because there's a difference between fixing a car and proving a point. A Bugatti that looks right and sounds right but can't reach its top speed is, in some essential way, still broken. The promise of the Veyron, the entire reason the car matters, is bound up in that number. 253 miles per hour. Remove it, and you have a beautiful, expensive, deeply complex car. But you don't have the Veyron. That's what made the next phase of the project so significant. The workshop had already done something most people thought was impossible. They had brought the car back from the dead. Now came the harder question. Could they bring back what the car was always supposed to be? The mechanical battle was nearly over. What came next would be a different kind of fight entirely, one measured not in replacement parts and wiring diagrams, but in persistence, principle, and the stubborn insistence that ownership still means something.